Hello everyone and welcome to this presentation on the biological theories of crime and delinquency. Today we will focus on one of the most influential, though controversial, figures in the history of criminology, Cesar Lombroso. We'll explore this Lombrosian theory, also known as the theory of atavism, and discuss its significant relevance on how we understand juvenile delinquency and our modern juvenile justice system. To understand the theory, we must first look at the man. Cesar Lombroso was a 19th century Italian physician and psychiatrist. He is widely considered the father of modern criminology. Why? Because he shifted the focus of criminology of the crime itself to the criminal. Before Lombroso, the classical school believed people committed crimes out of pure free will. On the other hand, Lombroso argued that criminal behavior was often determined by biological factors, challenging the idea that everyone is equally capable of following the law. So, what is the theory all about? At its core, the Lombrosian theory posits that criminality is inherited. Lombroso's main claim was that criminals are born that way. He believed that some individuals were evolutionary throwbacks to a more primitive stage of human development. He called this concept atavism. Essentially, he viewed a criminal not as some moral failure but as biological accident, someone whose evolution had stopped early, leaving them with the instinct of savage in a modern society. Lombroso believed he could identify those born criminals through physical characteristics which he called stigmata. Through his research on soldiers and prison inmates, he claimed to find common physical anomalies. These include asymmetrical faces, large jaws, high cheekbones, unusual skull shape, and even things like conceptually long arms and extra fingers. While modern science has disproven the link between this trait and crime, his work was pioneering because it was the first attempt to apply scientific, empirical methods to study the criminal mind and body. Lombroso didn't think every criminal was an evolutionary throwback. He categorized them into four main groups. 1. The born criminal, the atavistic individual we've discussed. 2. The insane criminal, those who commit crimes due to mental illness or brain defects. 3. The criminaloid. These are occasionally criminals who don't have the physical trait but commit crimes due to environment or opportunity. Lastly, the criminal of passion. Those act out of extreme emotion or love. This classification showed that Lombroso recognized that both nature and eventually nature played roles in behavior. Now, let's look at the relevance to our first question, juvenile delinquency. Lombroso observed that many children naturally displayed animalistic or impulsive behaviors like lying, cruelty to animals, or a lack of empathy. Most children grow out of this through socialization. However, he argued that born criminals never outgrow these primal instincts. In modern terms, this helps us look at delinquency as a developmental issue. While we don't look at the skull shapes today, we do not look at neurobiology and trauma, echoing Lombroso's idea that the delinquent is someone who's developed needs specialized understanding rather than just simple punishment. But the question is, does this theory impact our juvenile justice system? Well, Lombroso was cornerstone of the positivist school. This school moved away from retributive justice, which is just punishing the act, toward rehabilitative justice, because the theory suggests that offenders have predispositions beyond their control. The justice system began to emphasize individualization. This is why the juvenile system is separate from the adult system. We treat juveniles based on their specific needs, backgrounds, and potential for reform, rather than just the crime they committed. We focus on treatment and corrections rather than vengeance. Also, it is important to note that Lombroso's specific findings have been heavily criticized. His focus on physical trait led to dangerous racial and social profiling. However, his legacy is the scientific approach itself. Today's forensic psychology, behavioral genetics, and the study of brain developed in adolescence all owe a depth on Lombroso's shift towards studying the individual roots of behavior. Lastly, Lombroso taught us that to understand crime, we must study the criminal by identifying biological and developmental predispositions. We paved the way for a more compassionate and effective juvenile justice system. One that prioritizes rehabilitation and understands the path of delinquency is often complex and deeply rooted. Thank you for your time and good afternoon.
A story that I never tell, 'cause I